Buenas tardes, hola to all our friends at Bethany. Thanks so much for the opportunity to share with you, be part of your service this morning. I'm so sorry that we can't be there in person. We would much rather be with you in person, but so apologies, you're going to have to put up with the video. It also means that we don't get to have the coffee and biscuits afterwards. So if you can send one over, mine's milk, no sugar, and Anna will have a juice. Thanks very much. Today we are going to look at a story that actually it appears in all four Gospels, in Matthew, in Mark, in Luke, and John. And it's a story I love to kind of look at and think about. And it's a bit... When you find something that appears in all four Gospels, sometimes what it does, it gives us a different kind of perspective. It's like reading an event in a newspaper, or in four different newspapers. You know, they look at it from slightly a different perspective. And it's the same here. There's a slightly different kind of angle. And we're going to concentrate on the account that we read in Mark. But I would encourage you in your own time to look at the other accounts in the other Gospels as well. And for your reference, they are in Matthew 26, verses 6 to 13. The one in Mark is Mark 14, 1 to 11. In Luke 7, verse 36 to 50. And in John 12, verse 1 to 11. The one in Luke is perhaps the longest version, 14 verses. Mark and John both have 11 verses, and the one in Matthew is just a short version of 7 verses. You'll be pleased to know that this is not going to be a long sermon. I can hear you cheering already. And we're going to hang our thoughts on 3 words beginning with S. And actually this works in Spanish as well, but we'll stick to English. If it was going to be in Spanish, it would be even shorter sermon. First of all, with regards to the passage and this lady, we read that she does. First of all, Mark doesn't even mention her name. The title is Jesus is Anointed at Bethany, but this lady does a simple thing. She does a simple thing. She pours perfume on this kind of pure nard on Jesus' head. It's a simple thing. Sometimes we make our faith very complicated, or we're obsessed about wanting to do great things, and we miss the opportunities, perhaps just to do the simple things well. There's so many ways that we, so many examples, isn't there? Maybe it's, we write a letter to someone or an email to encourage them. Maybe it's a phone call. Maybe we offer to do the shopping for someone, or we visit someone who's housebound. Maybe we take time just to have a coffee with someone that perhaps no one else seems to have time for. Maybe it's something even less or more simple, an act like opening the door for someone, giving our seat to someone on the bus or the tube. Simple acts. Jesus noted, didn't he, that even a cup of cold water won't go unnoticed. Years ago, here in Ecuador, in Quito, we were in a church and was speaking to a group of super cool teenagers. These were, like I say, supposedly super cool. And I asked them before I started to chat with them, just if I could have a glass of water. And after a kind of pause and nothing happening, someone eventually got up and went out and brought me a glass of water. It's not actually that I didn't really need it. It was a test because we were going to look at the subject of service and being a servant, and I just wanted to gauge where they were at. Selwyn Hughes recounts a story in a book of his called The 7 Laws of Spiritual Success, which is a great book actually if you get a chance to read it. And he recounts this story. He says that early one chilly winter morning in London during the Second World War, a soldier was making his way to the barracks, and he spotted this lad with his nose pressed up against the window of a baker's shop. Inside, the baker was kneading dough for a fresh supply of donuts. The hungry boy stared in silence, watching kind of every move. The soldier walked over to the shop and stood at the side of the little boy. And through the kind of steamed up window, he could see the mouth-watering items that were being pulled from the oven. They watched as the baker put them in a glass enclosed counter. The soldier's kind of heart went out to the little boy. He said, "Son, would you like some of those donuts?" The boy was startled. "Yeah, I would," he said. The soldier stepped inside the shop, bought a few of the donuts and walked back to where the lad was. He smiled and he held out the bag and simply said, "Here, they're yours." He walked away, but he hadn't got very far when he felt a tug at his coat. He looked down and heard the child ask quietly, "Mister, are you Jesus?" Selwyn Hughes goes on to say, he says this, "We are never more like Jesus than when we give ourselves to others. It's the law by which every one of us should live." And sometimes it's just a simple thing that can make a difference in someone's life. Cheer up their day, take a weight off their shoulders, as it were, by an act of kindness. This lady did a simple thing. She poured perfume. Mother Teresa said, "We can't do great things, we can only do small things with great love." We can't do great things, we can only do small things with great love. Martin Luther King commented on this, and I love this kind of these words that he says. He says, "If you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is greatest among you shall be your servant." That's a new definition of greatness. By giving that definition of greatness, it means that everybody can be great, because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics in physics to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love, and you can be that servant. Martin Luther King. This lady Mark, she didn't plant a church, she didn't set up a mission, she didn't preach to thousands, she poured perfume. She did a simple thing. Secondly, she did a sacrificial thing. Perhaps it's obvious from the text that the nard, the perfume was costly, and so therefore it was a sacrificial thing. We read it could have been sold for more than a year's wages. The value of the nard was more than 300 denarii. Since a denarius was the kind of wage for a day's labour, the value of the perfume was a year's wage. That's a lot of money to be kind of blown all in one go, isn't it? In John's account, we see different motives actually being played out. Judas Iscariot is all about kind of getting, or a potential loss. Hence he's upset about the so-called waste. The perfume could have been sold and the money given to the poor. John adds that it's not that Judas cared for the poor, but because he was in charge of the kind of money bag and used to help himself, he was going to kind of lose out. So his mind was really on what he was losing. In contrast, John says Mary was all about giving what she could give. One was all about getting for himself, the other was all about giving. One released a kind of stench of greed and covetousness, the other a fragrance and a sacrifice that kind of filled the room. In terms of sacrifice, in Luke's account, in Luke 7, quite possibly it's another occasion with a different lady involved, but we can see another type of sacrifice involved. In Luke 7 verse 36, 37, we read, a woman in that town who lived a sinful life learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house. So she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. As she stood behind him at his feet weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears. Then she wiped them with her hair, kissed them, and poured perfume on them. I love this account. It's a fantastic account in Luke here. Let's just kind of break this down. The woman in this account sacrifices not only in terms of cost of perfume, but she sacrifices her reputation. She enters the Pharisee's house knowing that she wouldn't be welcomed by the Pharisee, knowing that she will be the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. And just being there in Jesus' presence, she realizes that she's messed up in life, and the tears start falling. It's not just the alabaster jar that's been broken, but more importantly, she is broken. And we read she wipes the feet of Jesus with her hair. I may be wrong, but I read somewhere that to do this she had to loosen her hair so that it fell down, and that was an undignified thing to do in those times. It was perhaps a sign that she was a loose woman, a prostitute. We get the hint in the phrase in verse 37 that maybe that was how she had been living her life. It says that in that town was a woman who lived a sinful life. This lady sacrifices in so many ways, not just in pouring of the perfume, but like I say, in putting her reputation on the line. But the only thing that mattered to her was connecting with Jesus and being right with him. And I just think her testimony speaks volumes to us today. The only thing that kind of really mattered was connecting with Jesus and being right with him. And in one sense, it didn't matter what other people think or thought. She found grace, whereas Simon the Pharisee, the host, it seemed that he was still kind of miles away. Sacrifice could mean so many things for different people, couldn't it? It could mean in terms of finance. It could mean in terms of time. Sometimes it's harder to give our time than it is our finance, perhaps. Time is so precious. It could be sacrifice in terms of reputation. In maybe sacrifice in terms of not getting even when we feel hurt and hard done by. And there is this real sense, isn't it, that perfume, that nard, is the more fragrant when sacrifice is involved. When there's sacrifice involved, that the fragrance that comes out of our lives is more rich, yeah. And thirdly, this lady, she does a significant thing. Yeah, she's done a simple thing, she's done a sacrificial thing, but she's done also a significant thing. It's interesting, isn't it, the different reactions we get in this story. Some of those we read, some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, "Why this waste of perfume? It could have been sold for more than a year's wages and the money given to the poor, and they rebuked her harshly. "Leave her alone," said Jesus. "Why are you bothering her? She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you, and you can help them any time you want, but you will not always have me." The people said, "What a waste," and were critical and judgmental. Jesus says, "You have done a beautiful thing." You can catch the contrasting tones of voice, that the harshness of those who are critical, and the kind of the encouragement that Jesus gives. It's interesting, like again in the different versions we read who. In Matthew's version, it's the disciples who are critical. In this version, we read it's just the people that were present, and in John's version, as we've already indicated, it was Judas. But Jesus says she's done a beautiful thing. And in verse 8, in this version of Mark, he adds this statement: "She has done what she could." What a great statement. She has done what she could. She did a significant thing. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. Truly, I tell you, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done will be told in memory of her. And it's true today, isn't it? Today, in July 2021, the woman who poured perfume on Jesus' head is woven into the tapestry of the gospel in preparation of his burial. And we remember her and what she did. I love the way that Jesus always seems to see things differently from human eyes or human perspective. He sees things differently to us, doesn't he? He sees the one sheep that needs rescuing more than the 99 that are safe. He sees the widow with 2 small coins in comparison to the rich throwing their money into the collection. He sees a boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish who's willing to give up his lunch so that others might be blessed. And he sees a lady who pours perfume while others just pour scorn. The question I think sometimes we need to ask is, do we want to be prominent or significant in the kingdom of God? Yeah. It's true, isn't it, that of course some are called to high profile positions, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's been good to hear some of the England football players talking about their faith and being more open about that. It's important that the church is salt and light and we need Christians in every area of society, don't we? For some, it's their pulpit is the soccer field, or the classroom, or the shop counter, or the factory, or the House of Commons, or the hospital ward, or the building site, or the office. The question or the objective is not prominence, but significance for the kingdom of God. And so we need this idea that as Christians we are salt and we are light and we permeate every area of society. Is so important. I read a great article last night about in relation to the Haiti and what has just happened, the assassination of the president there, and it was an article in a Christian magazine based in the States, and one of the questions was this to a couple of people who run, I think, like a Bible college out there in Haiti. What is the relationship between Haitian Christians and local politics? Do political discussions loom large within churches and general Christian discussions? And what is the political climate for Christians in Haiti that may be different from the overall population? And the response by this person is, if I were going to put any blame on the church for what is going on right now, it is on this aspect. I describe the church as being the last car of the Haitian train. We just sat down in the last car and we have left the non-believers drive us like crazy. And this is why we've been off track so often, because there's a lot of reckless driving going on in this country and the church is silent. Maybe we have to go back into the history of evangelical Christianity in Haiti to find out where the problem is. We do not interfere and we do not talk about politics. It's so corrupt, politics, and it cannot continue that way. And we at Emmaus University understand that, and we know that the church has a part to play. When people are just being governed by voodoo and evil spirits, it's demonic. I cannot count 2 or 3 Christians in the government. It is not surprising that people are selfish. They are not driven by biblical values, and the church has a lot to do about that. And this is where we come in, and we want this to change. We need to change people's mindsets about society. It's not just that we get saved and then we're going to heaven and we do not care about what is going on in our society. And it's heartbreaking to see the church is not addressing the situation as we should. There is a divide, a big divide, between the social life and the spiritual life and what Christians talk about and politics. There's a lot of corruption here, but there's corruption elsewhere. But in other places, the church addresses those corruptions. They hold political leaders accountable. But here, there is no such thing here in Haiti. The church needs to wake up. We need to have the country influenced by Christian values, by biblical values, if we want to see any change in Haiti. It's a great article, and the people were saying that, there's been this mindset for many Christians is that, we've got our passport to heaven and we're saved and we don't have to get involved in society. But again, taking this illustration, if we're to be the fragrance, there needs to be a mindset, a change, and to realise that we all have a part to play, to be not necessarily in prominent roles, but to be in significant roles, wherever that is, wherever God puts us in our communities, in our families, to make a difference for His kingdom and for His glory. I think the danger is today is that people, in the age of social media, it's easy, isn't it, to get into a kind of frame or a mindset where we're constantly just trying to build a platform for ourselves. Don't get me wrong on this. I'm not decrying all forms of modern communication or anything like that. I'm just saying we have to be careful, don't we? Are we really striving for personal prominence, or are we seeking God's kingdom first in our lives and seeking to want to exalt Him and glorify Him and live for Him? It's important, isn't it? We get our mindset right and our motives right. How can we turn the age of the selfie upside down? So to recap, this lady, she did a simple thing. Yeah, she did a sacrificial thing, and she did a significant thing, and a fragrance filled the room. I trust that God will bless you as a fellowship as you seek to continue to be that fragrance in Acton and West London. We send out our love and our greetings, and we miss you very much. And we're so sorry we can't be with you in person. But we trust that God will continue to bless you and encourage you as a fellowship. We so grateful for your ongoing prayers and your support for the work here. We hope we'll be able to send you an update about the new building work that's coming on. We're hoping, God willing, that it will be finished in August. It's taken a little bit longer than we thought. We're getting there, and it's coming on and it's looking good. And you've been part of that, so thank you so much. And like I say, we hope to update you in a few weeks' time. But on behalf of Anna and myself, we send our love and our greetings, and as we say in Spanish, un gran abrazo. a big hug. Okay. So God bless. Take care.